Hi, my name is Barak Strickland, and I am a fired retiree, and I help older adults who are transitioning into or living in retirement to flourish through meaningful connection, personal growth, and serving others.
Welcome to the Redirect Podcast, where we explore what comes after career. Real conversations about transitioning from the 9-to-5 grind to your next great adventure. Whether you're heading into retirement or simply redefining what purpose means, we're here to inspire, inform, and help you reimagine what's next. This isn't the end of the road. It's the start of something new. Dale and Adam, we're back in the studio. Very excited to see you guys, as always. And we're going to have another great conversation today, I feel.
I'm so looking forward to hearing yet another story. I love this podcast because I personally get to scratch that itch of hearing great stories and how people redirect in their life and do it with purpose.
Yeah, well, I too enjoy that component of what we bring here on the Redirect Podcast, is having guests in here and just to be a part of their world and I pull from it. So that is so true. Today, as we always do in the Redirect Podcast, is that we're trying to help in providing resources and people to tell their stories on purpose. Okay? Not their story on purpose, but their story of purpose. But before we get into our conversation today, I have a question, and I want to know if you guys have ever experienced a time where you have felt lost or desperate.
Okay. I was really high, and now I'm hearing this, so thank you for that, Curt.
Mountains and valleys.
But it's okay because it's real and it happens.
It does.
In thinking about it, in the business downturn of 2008, I owned a business and I was doing work internationally, and I was doing a lot of work in Dubai. And in one night, the Dubai economy completely faltered, where they froze all cash in the country. And at that time, I was owed $4 million from the company I was working with. It was one of Sheikh Mohammed's companies at the time. And the realization that there was a chance I wouldn't get that. How was I going to get it? And it wasn't that I knew the country wasn't going to completely go away or default. I mean, fortunately, their next door neighbor stepped in and kind of really helped them out. But I had a very, very small business. I was headquartered here in Cincinnati, but doing work in China and Dubai at the time. I was pretty lost at that time and worried about the business, obviously. Plus, the world was going through a big downturn, in the economy anyways. But there was a period of time where it was just not sure where this is going to end up.
For me, thinking back on episode, I think it was number 4 with Deanna Rose, she kind of dove into me a little bit, and out of that episode popped the story of the time in which I was dealing with cancer, the outcomes of that, and then, which didn't take a big toll on me by itself, but the dismantling of the team that I had built and the organization that I had crafted, and the success we were having all of a sudden just kind of fell apart. And that spun me into probably all in all a 2-year cycle of depression and just feeling lost. So yeah, it was that was pretty heavy.
Yeah. I had an experience once where I was just sort of, I didn't know where I was going. I wasn't sleeping. I would only sleep maybe 3 hours a night.
Which takes its own toll.
Oh, yeah. And I'd go to, and I have, as you guys know, my brain just keeps going, and I keep thinking of things and rolling things out, and I really was lost. And I didn't know where to go career-wise. I didn't know what was going on, recognizing I was single. We were a single-income family, so there was a lot of responsibility that I was taking on with that, and it was challenging. Thank goodness to Jackie for encouraging me to say, Curt, you need to sleep. And before you go to sleep, you just got to place all those things that are on your mind at the cross. And I'm sort of, I know that answer. And she started, no, listen, you got to place that stuff at the cross and put it at his feet. And that's his job in order to deal with those things, because you need to sleep. And I have to admit that was very, very good advice from her, because I did start to do that. And as a result, I did start sleeping better. And as a result, things turned around.
Jackie's a smart lady.
She is. She's the smartest one in our house. I know that. But yeah, those times are they're difficult times, as we all know, and it is all part of life, as you said. And I'm sorry to go from here to there, but it is something that we're confronted with on a frequent basis, and it all depends on what you got behind you and what you have inside of you in order to get you through it.
Well, maybe today's guest can help us explore that a little further. Today's friend of the Redirect podcast is Barak Strickland. Barak is a retired senior project manager whose career spanned 40 years with the U.S. Air Force, where he earned certifications in program management and life cycle logistics. Barak is a lifelong learner with a passion for turning ideas into action, whether through books, podcasts, travel, or hands-on experience. Barak is an experienced communicator and a competent Toastmaster, active in lay ministry and known for his collaborative, service-oriented leadership style. Recently, Barak has been helping others move from traditional leisure retirement to refirement, guiding older adults to rediscover purpose and joy in the third of life. Barak currently lives in Dayton, Ohio with his wife, Victoria, and is a proud father of 2 adult children in military aviation and software engineering. Barak, welcome to the Redirect podcast.
It is great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excited to talk to you today.
Glad to run into somebody else that thinks in thirds. I always talk about our next 30. This is the third.
The third.
Curt, that's the next 30.
Hashtag.
Third. There you go.
It's the new phrase coined for us.
So let's get a little background from you, Barak. Why don't you give us a little bit of your background in serving in the Air Force?
So in 1981, I got on an airplane for the first time in my life and flew from Des Moines, Iowa to San Antonio, Texas. And that's where the U.S. Air Force has their basic training. And so I survived that, went to Chanute Air Force Base, Illinois, which is now closed, and did some technical training for aircraft maintenance. And then, you join the Air Force to see the world. And then I go to Wichita, Kansas.
From Des Moines, Iowa to Wichita, Kansas?
That's not the world?
No. And so I did aircraft maintenance on KC-135s. They're the air refueling tankers for the Air Force, now being replaced by the KC-46 tanker. And did that for almost 4 years there in lovely Wichita, Kansas. Transitioned over to civil service after 4 years active duty, and then got married in 1988. In August of 88, came home from the office in October of 88 and said, "Hey, Victoria, would you like to move to Ohio?" And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, because I've got a job offer there at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base." And so 2 months after we were married, we moved to Dayton, Ohio, and I worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as a civilian in aircraft acquisition, weapon system acquisition. And so 40 years from 81 to 21 with the U.S. Air Force.
Wow.
So I got to ask, the acquisition, are we talking purchasing or target acquisition?
We're talking contract management
with
the Boeings, the Northrops.
Yeah.
So what was your decision in order to leave your career?
So it was kind of ironic. I thought I was finishing up my career on the KC-46 program, which was really neat because that's the aircraft that was going to replace the aircraft I worked on in the Air Force. And so that was the plan. And then I got a promotion over to the F-35 program. And I can't go into too much detail, but suffice it to say, it was the first time in my career that the program office that I was working for didn't have contract authority or funding. So the Joint Program Office in Washington, D.C. held all that. And for the F-35A for the Air Force, we were just kind of monitoring how things were going. And then COVID hit. And so I was at home for a full year doing full-time telework, basically doing not much of anything, to be honest. We got on a weekly team meeting call once a week, and then I just, in February of 2021, I said, I'm done. I can't take this. We're not really making progress on anything. And so I just said,
no end in sight, really, at that point.
No, I had enough, and I had enough, and I had enough. And so,
Okay. What did you do when you had enough? Did you think about what you're going to do afterwards while you were contemplating leaving, or did you make that decision to leave and then you said, now what?
well, I'm a pretty left-brain guy, and so I was reading books on retirement. My wife and I took a couple courses, and I knew that I should not retire from something, but I should retire to something. Unfortunately, I didn't do that, and so my decision was I've got to stop this, and then I'll figure it out. So
you had to bring one thing to a close before you could start the new course going forward.
that's how it worked out for me. Even though I knew better and I had great advice not to do that, I did it anyway.
And you were how old at the time, Barak?
I was a month shy of my 58th birthday.
Okay.
And was that idea of how you went into that, is that atypical for you, or is that how you go through decisions throughout your career?
That is very unusual for me. For those who know me, I'm a planner. I did project management and logistics planning, as you mentioned earlier. And so it was really shocking at the time that, I knew who I was. I didn't know where to employ that. And so that's part of the story we'll get into, is how God led me in that transition. But initially, just retired and did home projects and that kind of thing.
How long were you sort of in this place of, okay, I'm done with that and I'm doing home projects, before you started to get engaged into something? How long of a period was that, would you say?
Well, I met with my pastor pretty early on, and he had me helping out the North American Lutheran Church and the Anglican Development and Relief Fund haul disaster supplies. And so it started out with a question, hey, can I bring a truck down here to I think it was maybe University of Cincinnati here, but anyway, we didn't get in line soon enough to get these mattresses that the universities were giving away to take to disaster relief people in Kentucky. And so that didn't happen, but then the North American Lutheran Church needed a load of disaster supplies taken from here in Ohio out to Colorado. And so that was a real God thing, because I had been talking to Bruce Brynsma at Retirement Reformation out in Colorado Springs, and that's where this load needed to go.
Perfect.
So I called up my friend Paul Burns, and I said, hey, Paul, you want to take a truckload of disaster supplies out to Colorado? And he happens to have a daughter with grandchildren out there, so that was a no-brainer for him. And so we took this truck out, and so I spent a couple years doing that, picking up supplies and delivering supplies.
On call. You were on call?
On call as a driver, and Victoria actually went with me and drove the 26-foot box truck a few times. And so that was a filler for me for a few years.
Were you thinking that you were, really wanted to kind of give yourself to doing church work or nonprofit work? Did you think you were going to head that way? You just didn't know what it was going to be, or this was just going to fill time?
I was really filling time, because my heart and all the assessments I've done say go administer something. I have the gift of administration, and so my dad was pastor, and so I really have a heart for lay ministry. And so that's really my heart call. And so that's neat to see where God has brought me in that area. So it was just a filler for a while.
But the gift being brought forward for you was the gift of administration. You knew that was going to be, and you knew that had to be in your plan. Whatever it was going to be, it had to be something about project management administration.
Right.
And so for the listeners who aren't familiar with the term, what is lay ministry?
So lay ministry is if you're not ordained and serving the church. And so unlike my father, I am not ordained, and I don't have a desire to go to seminary. I just want to serve in whatever capacity the Lord has for me.
So in that aspect, like most of the people who are doing the work in the church technically would be probably the lay people doing ministry, correct?
That's the hope. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of churches, the congregation says, well, we're paying staff to do that. And I reject that. I believe the church is a body. Everybody is gifted, and everybody should be contributing.
Okay. Now, we mentioned in the bio you have 2 adult children. Any grandkids?
We have 1 grandson.
Okay.
Who we've been able to spend a little time with over the last few weeks. They visited from Southern California, and so we are very pleased. I had to apologize to the rest of the family. They all came back from California before Thanksgiving, and my eyes were only for my 2.5-year-old grandson.
Of course.
And so the next day I said, Victoria, Darren, Emily, I'm sorry, but I was really focused last night on Wesley.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, I know in some of the
got a couple of those. Yeah,
some of the conversations we'd been having, you were actually a resident of the state of Texas for a short period of time. What was that all about?
So the idea was we would sell everything.
Here in Ohio.
Here in Ohio. My wife would close down her physical therapy practice, which were the 2 things still holding us here. And we would go follow our son in his military career and help him get through his 20 or more years. So we did that in late 2024, moved to Corpus Christi, Texas, and that was in December. In January of 2025, my son was in training to fly the F-35. He was transitioning from Cobra helicopters to jets. He had a spinal issue, not able to do the G-forces that you need to do in a jet. And so in January, he was told that he would be going back to Southern California to helicopters.
Back to the Cobra program?
Correct.
Wow.
And so you can imagine we sold everything except 1 car and a few boxes of stuff, moved down there expecting to be down there several years with them. And then a month later, boom.
Yeah. So, I mean, good plan in the initial, because I know I have nephews that are in the service, and having an available parent to be there for the spouse while they're deployed or whatever is such a great help. And so a great idea, started out in a great way. And not only did you just sell your house and a lot of possessions and go down there, but you left a community.
Correct. Yeah. We left a whole network of friends and medical providers and, 30 plus years in the Dayton area and went somewhere new.
Okay. So let's talk before January happened. All right. So you're down there and you're moving on in. How did you feel about making that move at that time while your son was still in Texas? How did that work out?
So, YouTube makes the nomadic life look really sexy.
Yeah.
But when you're out there doing it and wondering where you're going to sleep and shower and go to the bathroom, it's not so great. And so I found that out.
Which doesn't lead to clicks and views on YouTube.
Yeah, so the nomadic life really called to me. And so I was fine with that. And my wife really wanted to do the support for our son and daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And so it seemed to fit.
And you were excited, looking into it, and then
absolutely
rug pulled out a very short period of time later.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what happened next?
So I started spiraling down emotionally. I had the worst time in my life. And so part of that was Victoria going to Paraguay, where she's from, to do caregiving for her parents. So she was gone 6 weeks. I was living in a hotel in Corpus, going over to Darren and Emily's for dinner most nights and playing with Wesley. But that was it.
Wow.
And so we did get involved in a church there. But again, it's a whole new place, whole new people. It just wasn't a good time for me. I thought I was going to travel around by myself in the state of Texas and see things. You know, I started that journey by visiting friends in Houston, and I don't know what happened there. Something happened in the hotel, and I just said, this is not for me. And so I called Darren and Emily, and I said, hey, I just need to come back to Corpus and wait for Victoria to get back, and then we'll deal with this. But it was just a downward trend emotionally.
Had you connected with a church, or were you looking at that, or, you know, what happened in that period of time?
Yeah, so we jumped right into a church there in Corpus, and they had an old guys lunch every other week Wednesday. And so I jumped right into that. They also did ramp build projects. The church did one a month.
Yeah.
And they had a waiting list of about 50 people that needed ramps into their home, in and out of their homes. And so I did that. I volunteered with the USS Lexington down there, an aircraft carrier that sits in the bay there in Corpus Christi. And then I got involved with AmeriCorps, and I did some work at a local school in the library, fixing up their computer carts and some of those kind of things. So I was just trying to stay busy as I look back on it, but it wasn't the fulfillment that I'd been seeking.
Time for a quick break. Hello. If you're liking what you're hearing, do us a quick favor. Hit that follow button, share it with your friends and family, drop us a quick comment, and then a 5-star review. It really helps us keep going and growing. Then head over to Instagram and follow us there too. Thanks for the help. And now let's get back to work. So let me dive in there for a second. That moment when you're just trying to stay busy, you're trying to find things to do so that you're not staring at another episode of The Price is Right. Where's your head? I mean, are you feeling like, hey, I know what's going on here. I need to stay busy until I get myself out of this? Or do you think, wow, this is it. This is all that life is?
So I'm trying to fill my calendar, especially when Victoria's not there. And I'm starting to sense no hope because I don't want to move to Southern California next.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And you've got no community to speak of, really.
No community outside of that church. And so it was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. Thank goodness I stayed faithful to my exercise. I've exercised for years, and so I would always do that in the gym. And, you know, I didn't give that up ever.
Good.
But, yeah, just trying to fill the calendar.
So obviously you came back to Ohio. Talk to us about coming back and why the decision to come back to Ohio. You probably could have gone other places. You said you didn't want to go to Southern Cal, and I totally understand that. But tell me that part of your life.
So once Victoria came back, things didn't really improve like I thought they might. And so Monday, April 14th
Of 25.
With Victoria saying, you've got to do something, I called 988, which is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Good for you.
And talked to a lady by the name of Hope. Now, I don't know if all the women there say their name is Hope.
They should. They should.
It's a good shtick.
There's somebody living up to their potential.
And so she talked to me, asked me some questions, and, you know, it was bad enough that she said, we need to refer you down to the Nueces County Mental Health Clinic. And I said, no problem. So Victoria and I jump in the car. We go down there. They bring me in right away. And then I meet with a social worker named Heavenly.
Get out of here.
No joke. So I've spoken to Hope, and now I'm speaking to Heavenly.
Is God on his way?
Jesus. It's Jesus next.
Jesus, yeah.
So they were very helpful, and I was there a couple hours, and they prescribed Zoloft for me, and then said, "Hey, we need to see you next week." And so that was really the bottom, where I was told by my wife, "You are going to get help for this." And so thank God she was there and insisted that I do that. And so then that...
Let's not lose sight of the fact that her name is Victoria.
Yeah.
Victory.
And so that led us to saying, hey, we just got to go back to Ohio. There's really not an option for me. It's a safe space for me. I've got friends. I've got medical providers there. And so that's what drove us to come back to Ohio in May.
May of 25.
Yep.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Talking 6 months ago.
Barak, my dude. Good call. Way to dial 988. I think there's a lot of people, honestly, who don't realize my hand is raised. At one point, I did not realize how close I was to a terrible, terrible decision. And for whatever reason, in my head, picking up and making that, dialing those numbers wasn't an option for me. I mean, I had it planned out. I knew what was going to happen. So, my dude, I'm glad. I cannot wait to hear how the rest of the story goes, because sincerely, there's a lot of guys out there. We all know the stats. Male suicide, especially amongst people 50 and older, is outpacing women like 5 to 1. They represent greater than 75% of all suicides. It is a dark and serious topic, and I'm really glad you've told us what you've said so far. Tell us the rest. How'd you climb back out of that?
So when we came back in the middle of May to Dayton, it was on a Sunday, and we had found a furnished condo in Kettering, and my wife said, "This is where we're going to live for now." And I said, "Yes, ma'am," and we made that reservation for a 6-month lease. That Tuesday, I met with one of my best friends, Paul Burns, for lunch. Then that following Sunday, we went to Fairhaven Church because we knew Pastor Paul Clark from a previous church. And he was kind of my fleece. I said, if we see Paul there and we reconnect, this is going to be the place for us. As soon as we came out of the 10:30 service, he came walking down the hall. And we hugged and reconnected. And so we have just plugged right back in with him and Fairhaven Church. I also was able to help my former next-door neighbor, who's in his 80s, do house projects. And so he would have me come over, and he knew what needed to be done, and he had the tools to do it. He just needed the hands and feet to do the work. And so that was very helpful. So getting back together with friends, getting back in a church with somebody we knew, helping somebody who needed the help and was willing to accept it, those are the 3 things I point to that I did right away when I got back here that just turned it around for me.
Awesome.
Let me ask you this. So for me, I call it a moment. I had a moment where I knew I was coming back. I had a moment where it was the second verse of the first song I heard sitting in a worship service after I had been out of church for a decade. I knew, pow, like a lightning bolt, this was going to be all right. That was my story. Was that a lightning bolt kind of thing? Like, hey, I think I'm going to be all right now? Or was it a series of events that happened over time?
So I think it was that first week that I just described, and getting back in connection with people here and just being back.
Yeah.
So it was about a week.
All in all, that's a lightning bolt, so to speak.
Yeah. I think, I hear a lot of stories about people who talk about, I'm going to leave. We're here in Cincinnati. I'm going to go build a home somewhere else. I'm going to move somewhere else. I think people really underestimate the power of community.
Oh, my.
Really underestimate sure, let's go visit somewhere else, but being able to come back home, and home is a community, is a powerful piece of the redirected years, and we can't underestimate the power of that. And Barak, your story just underlines that yet again, that, there's a lot of stuff that looks magical on TikTok and Instagram and everything else, that makes everything else look, nobody's looking at, I think, the most powerful piece.
We heard that from Ron and Paula Ledbetter. They said, they were jumping in their motorhome and they were tooling around, and they said we did not anticipate the impact of not being with community.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was concerned about that. She said, how are we going to have community in a new place or new places? And I said, back to social media. There's an RV community out there. There's, we could do that. Well, you really need, proximity matters.
Yeah.
And so you really need that proximity and those relationships. And so that would be a lesson learned, a huge lesson learned.
Proximity and frequency.
You do need community in proximity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, all right. So what's happening now? Okay. So, you've made the trip back. You're in Ohio. You've got your community established again. You're helping and such. But what are you doing today?
So I'm excited. I'm here with you guys today.
And we're excited on having you here.
Let me tell you how that happened. So Fairhaven Church, I talked to them about seniors. Well, seniors is not the right term. It's older adults or modern adults. Or I don't know what Donna Kastner calls it, modern elders, I guess.
Modern elders, yes.
So I said, is there a ministry here? Because, meeting with Bruce Bruinsma and the Retirement Reformation, I really had a heart for that, plus what I had lived through. I said, there's a need out there for people that retire, which really isn't biblical anyway. So I said, is there anything? And they said, hey, you need to meet with Pastor Curt Lathander. And I said, okay. And so he had a Repurposed Promise study coming up in August. And I said, I want to be a part of that. And so he tried to talk me out of it because Victoria was going to miss part of it, going back to Paraguay again. And I said, no. I said, I need this now. And so through Kirk and that study, I've been a part of the Refirement Network, the Greater Dayton Refirement Network, and met you guys, two of the three, at the November 10th event that we had, where we had about 40 people show up on a snowy morning and talk about each other and what we're doing in retirement and the resources available in retirement. And so I'm just relishing this refirement time and helping other people with studies and one-on-one time. And hopefully this community is just going to continue to grow as people see the need. I mean, I just met with my doctor again this week as a follow-up. And he says, what are you doing? And I told him this, and he said, I need to refer people to you. He said, I get guys in here all the time that are just floundering in their retirement. Yeah. And so at the end of the appointment, I said, are you serious? And he said, yes. And so I sent him the Greater Dayton Refirement Network website, which people can easily join once they go there and get involved. And so he's going to do that apparently because it is such a need.
Wow.
You talk about refirement. We've had that term once or twice on our podcast before, but tell our audience what refirement is.
So what is the difference between the word retirement and refirement?
I'm going to say one letter.
You're a smart man.
Or see, Adam, another testimony of my knowledge base.
He hasn't been here long enough to really assess that.
Ask him to spell it.
Oh, damn it.
Let
me use my phone.
Alexa.
Or have you heard this before?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's heard it before.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So it's one letter.
It's in his notes.
Retirement has a T, and refirement has an F. And God spoke to me during that repurpose promise study and said, what's the difference and what does that stand for? I said, well, T is today or temporary. F is for forevermore.
Wow.
So that's the difference. Retirement, we're focused on today or the temporary. Refirement is for forever, for eternity. It's the things we're doing that matter for God's kingdom. That's the difference.
Love it.
For those of you that want to hear a little bit more from one of the authors of the book, we had John McCarthy on. Right. And the book that Barak was referencing, the Repurpose Promise, is the workbook that's used for this 6-week study. And John sort of gets into that podcast. So there's another thing you can listen to on that to help support our conversation with Barak today. Tell us about the 6-week study. Yeah. How do you implement it? Who's involved? Is there a leader? Is it self-driven? What's that all about?
So what I've been involved in are small groups where Fairhaven has said, Pastor Curt, go do this study for people in this age group, in the third, 60 to 85 or whatever. And so we've had 5 cohorts of that study. I went through the 4th with my wife, and then I co-led with Curt on the last one, the 5th cohort. It's a book study where you do a life review. We get into skills, talents, spiritual gifting, and then also have a map for how we're going to relate with God and other people and what kind of impact we want to have. And so you have a very clear 1-page map going forward in what you're going to do in your refirement.
What are some of the things that you're seeing of the people that are coming to this, where their head's at, how they go through the process, and how do they walk away from it?
So we've seen a lot of people get involved in volunteer opportunities. They didn't know how they were going to use their skills and abilities, just like I didn't, until Pastor Curt, who we say, Jesus loves you, and Pastor Curt has a wonderful plan for your life. He will understand who you are and get you plugged into opportunities just like he did for me. And so we're seeing a lot of that, and we're seeing people say very specifically, I want to spend time with my grandchildren, and this is what I'm going to do with them. Or here's a ministry that needs blankets, and I knit, and I love to knit, and so I'm going to do that. Or like myself, I'm going to help people in this stage, figure out what they need to do in their refirement. So we're seeing stories, success stories, and that's the success of the Greater Dayton Refirement Network. We said it's really not about the numbers. It's about the success stories that are coming out of people's lives changing, being transformed from something where they're not flourishing into just flourishing because now they know who they are and how God wants to use them, and they're involved in that activity.
So it's like another self-actualization process that you put yourself in for this period of time to sort of assess yourself. Okay, that's what I did. That's all these things. Now, where do I want to go forward, and what are get my head thinking on to move forward, right?
Right, and it's the best time of life because typically you have the resources, the time, the money, the health, early in retirement that you can offer. And so it's the best time.
You've listened to a few of our episodes and you've heard, talk from us or about us. There's some pretty healthy overlap here in the refirement and repurpose promise and the kinds of things we're trying to accomplish here. They're very, very closely aligned with what our objectives are. So to hear how that's being put in action, boots on the ground, book studies, helping people directly is really encouraging.
So I wanted to go back a little bit to your doc who said, what are you doing? And I'm going to refer people to you. Are you getting references from him? And if that happens, what does it look like? What does it sound like when somebody calls you up?
So that was just this week. So I haven't heard anything yet that I know of. But
check your email.
I gave him the URL for the Greater Dayton Refirement Network.
Okay.
That's under Unified Dayton. And so there's a join now or inquire here button on there. And so people would put in their information and we would get in contact with them and we would say, hey, we've got some courses starting up in January, a Flourishing in Your third course from Fuller Seminary, the Repurposed Promise that we've been talking about. We also are partnering with Realize Your Calling, Dan Lawrence out of Columbus, on the spiritual gifting and opportunities to serve based on your spiritual gift survey. So we've got a little flow now of how to plug people in small groups and help them to get involved.
That's awesome. You're an agency. Well, you're not an agency, but you're collectively getting resources from the area to then actively engage with the community.
Right. We're essentially matching older adults with opportunities and each other. I mean, my deep desire is a community of people like us that can relate to one another, help one another, and are plugging into resources. So like Paul Heminger says, it's not a resource problem, it's a connection problem. And so I see myself as a connector of people and people to resources and vice versa.
So let's go back in time and let's go have a conversation with Barak Strickland from May of 25. Because there's probably a few of those guys out there. Maybe even one of them listening now. What advice do you give them?
I say we are all broken in some way. Go get the help you need. Lean on your relationship with Jesus if you're a believer. He loves you more than anyone else. And right now I have an estranged daughter, and that's the comfort I take, is that Jesus loves her even more than her mother and father. And so if you're listening, I would cry out to the Lord. I remember one night in Corpus Christi, I did that. I was by myself at an intersection at night, coming home from Darren and Emily's, and I said, Lord, I am hopeless. I have nothing, and you have got to help me. And so that was in that low period. And so he did. I would also say that you need to lean on your other relationships. Don't be afraid to talk to your brothers and sisters in Christ or your friends if you're not a believer, and just be humble and say, I am struggling. And that will facilitate help in whatever form that comes in.
Talk to somebody.
Reach out.
I think that's awesome. And it's really fun to hear. I mean, you're from where we just explored that time in Corpus Christi at the intersection to now is a relatively short period of time. And it feels like we're sitting here with a different person. And it sounds to me, I hesitate to overuse the term, that's a miracle, brother. I am glad you're here.
Yeah. I did some Christian calling or God calling coaching several years ago in this time when I was trying to figure it out after I retired. And there's a tool that shows the topography of the land, and there's a valley of identity. And right before that valley was when I retired. And I thought I was in the valley until I went through this experience. Now I know what that valley is, and I know that I'm climbing the mountain of fulfillment right now. I've started that. And so, to your point, it's a very quick turnaround, but this is the plan God has for me. He's taken me through that valley. He's making me more empathetic and sympathetic to other people. I never imagined I would be in that situation, but I was. And so now, through that valley, towards the mountain, or up the mountain, step by step.
And what does that look like up there?
So that looks like meeting individuals, having opportunities like this through meeting other people, being able to connect a friend who's afraid to retire because he doesn't know what he's going to do with widows who need handyman services. We've done that this summer. He's continuing to do that. Those kind of connections, that's what it looks like, making an impact to people's lives, co-leading small groups that help people through that process and seeing those results. That's meaningful to me.
Heck
That's
yeah.
awesome.
That's a blessing.
That is.
And what's great about it, similar to what we're doing here on Redirect, is that it's not about the numbers of people that we've touched or that this has touched. It's just one person at a time, and that's where you got to start. You got to start with yourself, and you did that. Again, I share Adam's thoughts and the times that we've had a chance to visit. You were in a big valley, and now you're making your way up the hill, and you're shedding a light to other people. And I thank you for yourself that you had that ability to do that, and the people in your life to help you. And I thank you for being a part of our conversation today and sharing what you're doing. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, and click on, can you give us some links, some websites, or contact information?
So I would say just do an internet search on Barak Strickland, BarakStrickland, or use that name and send me an email at Gmail. BarakStrickland@gmail is fine, and I'll read it. I'll reply to it, and would love to talk to anybody that needs to refire in their retirement.
That's awesome.
Boy, I love that. I love that. And I want to thank God for bringing you here.
Mm-hmm.
He's directing all this, and we've been blessed. So thank you so much.
And thanks for joining us on the Redirect podcast.
We'd like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the 1819 Innovation Lab at the University of Cincinnati for their incredible support and partnership making this show possible. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can find more of our content on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as Instagram. Have questions or want to connect? Drop us a line at info@redirect-u.com. We'd love to hear from you. Remember, there's purpose in your life, so find it and go do something about it.
Hey, I've got one more comment. The Redirect podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We engage in an open, honest conversations about personal growth, life transitions, and the lessons we've learned through our own experiences. While we speak as experts in our own lives, we are not licensed therapists, medical professionals, or certified coaches. The content shared on the Redirect podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of qualified professionals for any physical, mental, or emotional concerns that you may have. We're grateful to share this space with you and hope that our stories inspire reflection and connection. If you're in need of more support, we encourage you to connect with a trusted professional who can help.